Hi guys, this is the mandatory Zoom training that Mr. Kuiper is requiring us all to take. So if you're using your iPad, first thing you're going to do is make sure that you have the Zoom app downloaded. When you click on the Zoom app, you'll notice a couple options. You have a couple options over on the left-hand side. The first one is the home button, which is where you'll stay for the most part. Next, you have chats where you can basically start text message threads with other Zoom users. We're probably not going to use this one very much. Next, you have meetings. So this is where all of your scheduled meetings will be, and here you can just start a meeting. And then underneath that, you have contacts. We don't really need to use the contacts here. You don't need to load the contacts in because we're going to post our meeting information to Moodle or RenWeb or email for our students. And then down in the bottom left-hand corner, you have settings. You'll see meeting settings, and this is where you can change some overall settings like I'm going to make sure that my video is turned on, that my microphone is not muted as a teacher. Other things that I'm going to have in here will be in the chat. I can make sure I get notifications for all messages, especially if students are messaging me. I think those are the settings I want for right now. Over on the right-hand side, you'll see we have the option for new meeting, schedule, join, or share screen. New meeting is probably when you just want to have a meeting with someone on the fly. This is not something that's scheduled. So something that you want to schedule with students would be under the schedule option. So I'll click on schedule and I'm going to put in some sort of title and pick a start time and date. So this is going to start on Tuesday at 10 a.m. My duration is going to be 30 minutes. Don't worry if you go over those 30 minutes, students won't be kicked out unless you end the meeting. My time zone will be Arizona, and I can choose when I want to repeat that. So if I want to repeat that every week, it will happen every Tuesday, and I can end the repeat wherever I want. So I'm going to pick May 18th, which is what we said will be our last day of school. Then under the calendar, I can choose to save it to my iCalendar and create a calendar request for that. If you have Outlook set up, you might also have that option. We do not want to use a personal meeting ID, so this should be off. The reason we don't want to use a personal meeting ID is because if you use the same meeting ID for every single meeting on Zoom, then students can actually come into a personal meeting with family or friends. So we do want to generate an automatic meeting ID every meeting. Under password, we are requiring that you use a password. It should auto-generate a 6-digit number, but you can also change that. Please do not change it to something easy or guessable like 00000 or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The whole point of having a password is that it's something that will prevent people from logging into your class if they are not welcome. Under meeting options, I'm going to make sure my host video is on when I start the video, and it's up to you if you want the participant video on or off. Now that we're using waiting rooms, it's not quite as important, but I personally am going to leave it off until I verify that the student who I think it is in the class with the correct name. The audio option for students really just needs to be device audio only. That's going to allow them to use the audio that's built into their iPad. And then under waiting room, this is mandatory now. You do need to enable the waiting room. When you enable the waiting room, you'll notice on your end that students have joined and you can accept them to come into the classroom. If you don't recognize a name, then you do not accept them into the classroom. This is really important. Students might try to make a fake name, and you should not accept them into the classroom if there's any sort of fake or funny names, only their actual name. Once you're in a Zoom meeting, you can also double check that students can't rename themselves by clicking More, Meeting Settings, and then turning off the ability for students to rename themselves. Under advanced options, I would make sure that allow join before host is off. We don't want students to join the meeting without you present. And then under automatically record meeting, unfortunately on your iPad, it will not automatically record, but if we're working on a computer, it will record your entire lesson, save it to the computer, and then you can post it to Moodle. Once that's done, it'll generate your calendar request. And so here I see Tuesday office hours. Right underneath that is the link to the meeting. And I can add it into my calendar. Down at the bottom, you'll notice this is the information that we're going to want to copy and we're going to want to paste into Moodle. It has the link to the meeting as well as the meeting ID and the password. A reminder here that we do not post this meeting information anywhere on public sites because anyone has access to that and can join your meeting. So we will only post this meeting information on internal sites like Moodle or RenWeb, or you can email it to students. Remember, we want to push students to Moodle and RenWeb as much as possible since those are our school-wide tools. Now that I've set up a meeting, if I'm ready for that meeting to start, I'm going to go to Meetings over on the left-hand side. I have a couple different meeting options, but whenever I'm ready to start that, I'm going to click Start. You are going to do call using internet audio so that you can hear yourself and others, and then I'm going to stop my video just so that I can continue filming. So we have a few options on the iPad. The first one is this mute button. That's going to mute your own voice, or it will unmute your own voice. So on the iPad, that's where we are looking for that. Right next to it is the start and stop video option. To the right of that is the share content button. This one is really important if you're trying to share your screen or your whiteboard with the other students. So sharing your screen might be helpful if you're trying to show them specifically where to find something on Moodle or how to access a document or where to find something on the internet. And then sharing a whiteboard is going to be helpful for actually doing problems with kids. So you can write onto this and students can also participate depending on what the settings are that you have for this. -5, and the kids can see the work that you're doing. When you're done with a whiteboard, you can save each of those slides to videos. You can also add a new slide instead of having to erase everything. And then here you can go back and forth between your pages. There's also more options like font, the thickness of your marker. You can highlight where you are, use a laser pen, and then you can also move things around on the screen. So that's the whiteboard feature. When you're done sharing the whiteboard, you're going to stop sharing your screen. To the right of that, we have the participants. This is where you'll see everybody who's joined the meeting. As you can see, I'm the only one in this meeting with myself. If I want to unmute the student, I can unmute audio. I can also unmute the video and ask them to start it. If I were you, I would make sure that a student does show you their video to ensure that it is actually them. Because if halfway through the meeting they unmute their video and all of a sudden someone random is there or something inappropriate is showing, that's a problem. When you click on a student, there's also a few other options. You can chat specifically with that one kid. So if someone had a question, you can send them an answer individually instead of with the whole class. You can make someone else the host. This probably wouldn't be a good idea with students, but maybe if you're having your own meeting and you need to leave, you can make someone else the host. If a student's misbehaving or if you're not exactly sure who they are, you can put them back into the waiting room. Once they're in the waiting room, they see a screen that says Miss Clausen needs to accept you into the meeting, and so they're just kind of waiting there until you admit them in. This could be helpful if you're answering individual questions and if you have like a line of students waiting for you. As you can see, you'll have a whole list of students waiting in the waiting room when they first join the meeting, and you just need to click the Admit button to let them into the meeting. It takes a second, but then they're going to show up with their video and their chat. Other things you can do if students are misbehaving, click on their name and then click Remove. That will kick them out of the meeting and they won't be able to join back again. Other things in this place, you can mute everybody on the whole group. You can unmute everybody in the whole group. Those are just some quick fixes on the iPad. Over to the right, under More, you'll see that there's a place where people can give an emoji reaction. So if someone is teaching and we're all muted, instead of everybody saying great idea, kids or yourself can give a reaction there. This is where you also enter the chat to see what students are saying. So it's a little bit less user-friendly on the iPad than on a computer. Underneath that is the meeting settings. So the main thing that you would want to do is lock the meeting after you know everybody who's supposed to join has joined. The reason you want to lock the meeting is because typically when someone is Zoom bombing, they'll join later and kind of shock everybody. So lock the meeting as soon as you know that everybody who's supposed to be there is there. You can also mute everybody upon entry. So when participants join the meeting, they're muted and then they would have to unmute themselves. Play chime for enter and exit. This is up to you. If you are just kind of working on your computer with open office hours and a student joins to answer a question or ask a question, you may want to have the chimes play. But if you're having a group meeting and a lot of people are in it, you probably don't want to have the chimes going off every 10 seconds when someone enters the meeting. Put participant in waiting room on entry should be set to on. Allow participants to chat with. This is important. We should set it to host only. That way students can ask you a question, but they can't type and ask questions with their friends. The reason this might be important is because there might be some side conversation happening. They screenshot it with a picture of you to the left and their comments to the right. You can enable students to chat with everyone publicly, but we just don't want students to be able to chat with everyone publicly or privately. So either host only or everyone publicly. Underneath that, allow participants to rename. That should be off. You do not want that on because we don't want students to have the opportunity to change their name to something funny or inappropriate that distracts the class. Allow participants to share. I would have that off. That allows them to share their own screen or photos or whiteboard just like you did. It really depends on what you're doing in the class, but I would have that off. If a student really doesn't know how to use something, then you could go in and change it so that they can share, especially if they wanted to show you how to work a problem and they wanted to use the whiteboard feature. Other than that, make sure that show name when participants join is on so that you always see their names, especially if you don't recognize someone, like if they're wearing a hat or glasses or their face isn't showing or anything like that. You need to know who's in your classroom, so we need the names on and we need to be able to see them. And that should be it in meeting settings. The other thing that you should know up in the top left-hand corner, that is gallery view versus active speaker. So when you're in gallery view, you'll see everybody who's joined the meeting. If there are a lot of people inside your meeting on an iPad, you won't be able to see them all on one screen, so you'll need to swipe to the right to see the additional people in the meeting. So those are the main settings for using the iPad. Just a reminder to keep our meetings safe. You need to have a waiting room upon entry. You need to have a password enabled. You should mute everybody's screens when they're coming into the meeting. You should have chat set to host only. Also remember, you don't want to post the meeting link or ID anywhere public, so only on our Moodle pages, which are internal, or if you emailed it out to your class. Again, I would recommend that you're always posting to Moodle and RenWeb and forcing students to look for all information there, since that's a school-wide tool. All right, if you have any other questions, feel free to email me. There will be an additional video for making breakout rooms following this.